The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by TechTown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. TechTown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. TechTown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. TechTown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. Social distancing edition, week 5 of this, I believe. Week 2 of the live stream with the Zoom component that we have here. Having a little bit of fun. And we have, of course, regular guest Nancy Derringer. Nancy, tell me about the T-shirt you're wearing there today.
Oh, this is a T-shirt for the Stools, which is a band. I should have my daughter's T-shirt band T-shirt on, but the Stools are fronted by one of her good friends from high school, and they play loud, sludgy, angry music, and that was kind of my mood this morning.
So the name is fitting, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Plus, I have a workout scheduled, a Zoom workout scheduled after this Zoom, and so I need to get dressed.
Well, it's hard not to wake up irritable some morning.
It really is, especially after the president has suggested that what we need to do is shine a flashlight down our stomach or whatever the hell it is. Anyway,
hold on a second. So I have to introduce people here. Alan Weigel is with us once again.
Thank you. I'm just irritable from drinking Lysol this morning.
I was going to say,
I thought it would be a good drink.
Good colon cleanser.
Right.
Also, we have with us Steve Fishman, who is here. Of course, attorney Steve Fishman, a frequent guest on the program. We appreciate your ability to join us today, sir. Thank you.
No problem. I'm looking forward to it, particularly hearing Lengel's concoction of drinks he's been consuming.
Well, see, I've got this, which is just, from what I understand, this is only the red part of the Tide Pod, because that's the part that has the bleach. So I mixed that in. Actually, this is a Diet Squirt, I believe. So, but anyway, all right. So I just wanted to sort of start out with this, because when I started this Friday thing on my old radio show, 7-8 years ago, we started doing this. My producers and I would actually have a meeting to go over and comb through all the news sources we could find to find stupid stories to talk about, dumb things to talk about that happened during the week. Now I only have to open up the Washington Post every single day. And
there is but
something.
One story that we talk about now. So,
there is one story, but there's many facets to the story. And I have to say that I opened up my newspaper this morning, the Washington Post, which is what I like to read first thing in the morning. And this is a headline I never thought I'd have to read. Trump's comments prompt doctors to warn against ingesting disinfectants and bleach.
But,
the fact that this is on the front page of the Washington Post is shocking to me. Incredibly silly that we're even talking about this, or that Lysol decided that they had to put out a warning to people to not drink their stuff. What the hell is going on here?
I want to say the Washington Post also had a headline from Jennifer Rubin, the columnist, columnist, and it says, "Stable genius or dangerous ignoramus?" And on top of that, I put, "Not really a multiple choice question."
I saw that this morning too.
And somebody else wrote under and said, "Is that a trick question?"
But I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I can't. I just can't.
No, you really can't.
No, I mean, Dr. Birx looked like she was just going to go into some sort of shock that she was even being asked a question about whether or not there are therapies where you could rinse out the lungs.
Yeah. And here's the thing. There are already apologists online saying he was clearly just spitballing. He was being facetious. He was just suggesting, this was never meant to be taken literally. And I have 2 things to say about that. Number one, if some people did take it literally and drank bleach or shot it into their veins or whatever and died, no big loss. This is a Darwin Awards. Let's take the shallow end of the gene pool and just. But here's the thing.
Harsh.
I know that it's a terrible thing to say because some people may. Anyway, The other thing is, though, what this is going to do is it's going to attract that certain kind of grifter who is flowering in this rich flower bed of Trumpism, who is going to come up with some kind of supplement or pill or, you know, whatever, and sell it to people, and they will take it, and they will either lose their money or they will lose their health or whatever. One last quick thing, and I'll let you guys talk. I read this. I never read the Daily Mail, but there was a story in the Daily Mail a couple weeks ago about the One America Network correspondent, who is that very pretty girl who sits in the back, and she lobs these unbelievable softball questions at him during the briefing. So, Mr. President, would you describe your performance as awesome or super awesome? You know, that kind of thing. And the Daily Mail looked at her resume, which is a complete fantasia. And she's basically a grifter, and she comes from a long line of grifters. Her father is the exact same way. And I thought, it's like, what do they say, Steve, in sports? Game recognized game. I mean, it's like these people saw who got elected, and they just said, you know, this is the time. Our time has come. Let's go to Washington and make some bank. So,
well, you know, I got to say, though, real fast, one of the better ideas I saw about somebody doing exactly what you're talking about, Nancy, is selling syringes of sunshine to some of the Trumpers.
Well, that'll kill you, too. So
it's like those cans of Florida sunshine you used to buy at the tourist traps down there.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, you shoot air in your veins, it's not going to go well. So,
I think.
What's your read, Fishman?
Well, I think that there are a number of things. Number one, lest anybody believe that the makers of Lysol put that up on their all over the place just because they felt like it. I guarantee you their lawyers immediately, and the lawyers for any other disinfectants, whether it's going to be Clorox, rubbing alcohol, or whatever, they're already thinking about the plaintiff's lawyers' lawsuits down the road when people listen to this guy, suck up some Lysol and drop dead. This way, at least, they're all out there saying, whether he's an idiot or not, just don't do it. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, I agree 100% with Nancy. I think that grifters attract other grifters. This certainly isn't the beginning of it. This has been going on since he's been in office. And there's not any doubt, I don't think, in anybody's mind that people are going to, as they already have been doing with respect to this virus, pretending this is going to be a cure, pretending this is going to help you. I mean, this is exactly what you're going to have. And when you talk about the lady, she's a grifter who comes from a family of grifters. God, who does that remind you of? Two people I can think of, Mr. Trump and Jared Kushner. I mean, what are we talking about? You know.
Well,
exactly.
You know, that's something to consider, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, because I do want to talk about this oversight of this federal stimulus cash that's going out there, and what's been happening out there in terms of Paycheck Protection Act and everything else. It's not doing what they're supposed to do, and there's some incredible resistance to any real oversight to how this money is spent, because they know when they start peeling back the onion of where this money has gone, that there are going to be some unsavory characters who've taken advantage of the federal government on this one. I think we're going to see that pretty darn fast, and a lot of people who have no business looking for government bailouts at this point in time. But we'll see. I don't know. But I want to get back to this discussion about Lysol, et cetera, that took place yesterday, because this, to me, should be the final nail in the coffin for the networks carrying these press conferences every single day. Send your people there. Tell us what the stats are that came out of there. Tell us what sort of batshit crazy stuff he did, but we shouldn't be subjected to watching this live. Somebody needs to actually go through this before misinformation becomes dangerous, because we've already seen instances where the things he says in these press conferences spiral out of control. Hydrochloric, whatever the stuff is, hydrochloroquine, hydroxychloroquine. That's it, exactly. Already we've seen people who have been hoarding that medication, stockpiling it. Now we have a study that suggests that it may actually harm more people than it ever helps. We've been down this path before, yet we never seem to learn.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing with the Hydra, whatever drug, is that there are anecdotally, there are cases where it has helped, but there are plenty of cases where people have had cardiac. No, there are some cases.
There are anecdotal
but they're not
cases
sure
where people
whether or
have
not it had a
taken
role
and gotten better,
Right.
but that's not the same thing as, I mean,
It's not the
legislator, this state legislator
Right.
who took it and credits it with saving her life.
Right.
She was 38 years old. The mortality rate for people under 40 from this disease is exceedingly low. She was saved by her own immune system. I mean, if she had gone out in the backyard and run around naked 3 times around her lawn chairs that night, that wouldn't have cured her either. But you know,
here's the thing. I'll say one thing. There was a guy in Macomb County who said, for whatever, and he was also given the antibiotic, whatever the cocktail of antibiotics was with it as well. He says he was basically on deathbed, on the death's doorstep, and that within a couple hours or so after taking it, he started to be able to breathe and feel better. But there are plenty of cases where people are having cardiac arrest. It's a harsh drug, and so it's like any other drug. I mean, look, when you watch TV and they advertise a drug, and then they have about 15 seconds that says can cause stroke, heart attack, depression, and so some of the drugs are probably more likely to have a lot more side effects. So I mean, it's a dangerous drug to just indiscriminately use. Look, Ford Hospital is doing an experiment, a clinical trial with 3,000 people where they are trying to experiment with the drug to see if it'll be a prophylactic.
And so they're going to wait until they see some results before they actually publish their findings or suggest that everybody should run out and do this. It's a controlled environment with doctors involved making decisions on whether or not this is working.
Right.
That's what's
I'm not advocating the drug, but I'm just saying that it's not 100% useless, but there's certainly a lot of question marks.
I'm advocating responsibility, that's all.
Right.
Can I also say this about Alan Lengel as someone who has worked in the same room with him for a couple of years now? He also is the kind of guy who goes downstairs and buys an $8 bottle of turmeric juice when he's feeling a little punky, and credits this with like making him better. So he's kind of he's definitely into, shall we say, alternative medicine.
I'm into voodoo medicine.
Exactly.
I think what Craig said, though, is really, really, really important. And I think those who are thinking people recognize that, which is no one really should be talking about this stuff other than experts. And they should be real experts, like Dr. Birx, if she could get out from under him, like Dr. Fauci, like any number of people that we've heard from, whether it's in the Washington Post or the Times, which is where I get it, or whether it's on television. The problem to me, and I think we're all saying the same thing, when you get somebody like Trump or any of his lackeys that is so incredibly ignorant, who knows absolutely nothing, and he's making public statements, and people who are used to listening to him might go out and do something that's going to harm them. So that's the real danger. The virus itself is dangerous enough, right? We really don't know enough to know how dangerous yet, but we know a lot of people have died from it. And to throw in somebody like him, who's an ignoramus about everything, but particularly about anything having to do with medicine, and allow him to say things publicly, I agree with you guys 100%. There's no way that stuff should be on TV every day for normal people or people who may live somewhere who sympathize with him or whatever. If one person goes and does what he suggested, one person, right, goes and sucks down a cocktail of Lysol and I don't know, antifreeze, whatever. I mean, that's one person that's going to die for no reason just because he listened to an idiot.
Well, so there was a doctor on television this morning that advised against people doing this. And interestingly enough, he said, hey, here's something people need to realize. There's a whole lot of people that commit suicide using this very method all the time, drinking bleach, stuff like that. It will kill you. And that's what he said. He goes, it will definitely kill you. It's a very, very popular method of suicide to see people ingesting toxins like this. And the fact that, the president even asked the question should shake even his most core followers to their core. They should be sitting there going, wait a minute, how much time, how much of my sanity have I invested in this guy? And if it doesn't make you re-examine your loyalties, wow, I'm not sure what to tell you at this point.
I found a great quote from Albert Einstein, who said, there are two infinite things in the world, the universe and stupidity. And he says, I'm not sure about the universe.
Very true.
That movie Idiocracy a few years back. I don't know if anybody remembers that one, but basically a guy gets frozen, cryogenically frozen for a couple hundred years and wakes up, and he's just a normal guy. And then they quickly realize that he is the smartest human on the planet because everybody else has gotten so stupid. And so I was watching this yesterday, and the first thing I could think of was in Idiocracy where they're feeding all the plants Gatorade because they think it's what plants crave.
It's what plants, it's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave.
And he's like, no, you put water on plants and then they magically start to grow. And people are like, wow. So
he's like,
I thought it was a comedy. It was not a comedy. It was a warning.
It was a documentary.
That's right.
I was watching Stephen Colbert last night. He had Bill Gates on. And he asked Bill Gates, is there something out there that makes you optimistic? And Bill Gates did say the plasma, that people are carrying the antidote inside them. And he thinks that may show some promise in terms of duplicating and distributing on a wider basis. So granted, but when we talk about a vaccine, the vaccines are so difficult to make. And we've seen that through the influenza. Every year, they've had to make a new influenza shot and trying to guess which are the strains. And that's, I think, one of the things that they're worried about here is that this is going to, keep mutating into different strains. And we're always going to be, it's not going to be like polio where we hit it right on the head. I think it's a more complicated and it's a vicious virus.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see how much longer, we're going to be operating this way. I have a feeling that it's going to take us a long time to sort of get back to normal. Governor Whitmer today amending her stay-at-home order a little bit, another 15 days added on to it, but some things are being loosened a bit. Apparently, you can take your boat out, and landscapers will be able to cut your grass and things along those lines. So it is loosening up. The steel grip of tyranny is being loosened just a little bit here in Michigan.
What percentage of Michiganians have a boat?
Golf is allowed too. So apparently,
we have a sailboat though.
Uh-huh.
So the steel grip of tyranny, I like that phrase, Greg. So let's say that tomorrow, here's my question for anybody that I have this conversation with. And in fact, I just had not a Zoom conference, but it was having to do with Michigan basketball. There's a bunch of guys in there. Some of the older guys are pretty conservative guys. And they were, the cure could be worse than the disease. And I said, wait a minute, guys. You guys don't live in Detroit. You haven't buried two friends. Well, we haven't got a chance to bury him, obviously, including one of my high school teammates. I can't tell you the number of people I know who've been afflicted with this disease, many of whom have survived it by, they think, luck, not by sucking down some kind of magic drug or something like that. Just they got a lighter strain or their immune system was better. But the question is, if it opened up tomorrow, if we had an absolute idiot for governor like Mr. Kemp down in Georgia, and he said, you know what, I'm opening the gyms. All you guys go play 5-on-5 basketball, half court, so you can really be close to each other. How many people that you guys know do you think are going to go to a gym and sweat? I almost said schwitz, sweat all over the place, and go to a restaurant, for instance, and sit 2 feet from you? Go to a bar. How many people do you know that would do it no matter what an idiot like Kemp said?
Well, that's an issue, and John Kerry was talking about that the other day on TV, and he was saying it doesn't matter if you don't have consumer confidence. You can open everything. I mean, I'm not going to a movie theater. There's no reason. I've got every, Showtime. I've got them all. It's like, why risk your life for that? And the only thing is, I mean, Georgia may be the canary in the coal mine for us, where we'll be able to look in a week or two and see, holy cow.
No, that's Vegas. That's
Vegas too.
I've got a special schmuck of the week lined up today, so that's going to have something to do with Vegas.
Every week, there's too many.
I know.
She's going to be tough to top. I don't know if you guys watched it. I had my computer on and I've seen Anderson Cooper a few times talking to people. I have never seen him so flummoxed and so astounded at what he was. You guys see that when he goes like this? He said, "Oh my God, what is this shit?"
Well, and I've got to pull that up because maybe we should just get to that Schmuck of the Week nominee right now, because it was just an absolutely batshit crazy interview that Carolyn Goodman, the mayor of Las Vegas, did with Anderson Cooper on CNN the other day, where she basically offered up her city's residents
Right.
as guinea pigs to determine whether or not this was dangerous. And I know a bunch of people who live in Vegas said, oh, hell no. I'm not going to do that. And the union's already speaking up saying, no, there's protective equipment. What are you going to do to make it safe for us? And then she said that she was only offering up Vegas residents to do this, but not the people who live in other jurisdictions, because she can't order them to do anything because she's not the mayor of all the other towns like Henderson that are right outside of there. And a bunch of people, of course, who work in the casinos live in those things. And so she's like, well, I'm only offering up Vegas residents, not all employees. And
Did you also see when when Anderson Cooper said, are you going to sit on the casino floor day after day and see if it gets, and she says, well, no, I have a, she said, I have a family. And then she began to say something like, I have to cook for them every night. But the fact that she said, I have a family is kind of like, the rest of you schmucks go do this.
So do you guys know that she won election with 80 or 85% of the vote? If I'm not mistaken, her husband was the mayor of Vegas for quite some time.
That's what I was thinking.
He's deceased, and she kind of took over.
Oscar Goodman or something?
Oscar Goodman. And Lengel and I know when we're watching this woman talk, we're going to teach you guys a Yiddish word. It's called a shanda, right? So Lengel, you tell them.
We know that one already.
You already know that.
Yeah, but the audience may not know it. The audience may not. So here's your Yiddish lesson for the week, everybody.
We're sitting there watching, and a shanda is a disgrace, right? It's a disgrace, particularly a disgrace to the Jews. And this woman is talking, and I'm sitting there thinking, if my mother were alive, my mother would take an axe and destroy the television set. There's no way she'd listen to this. Are you kidding?
Well, it was a very, very strange interaction between those two on that show the other day. And like I said, Anderson Cooper's reaction was perfect. I love the fact that they had the split screen going because you could see him. He did. He's just like, what? And at some point, if you're Anderson Cooper, you're like loving the fact that you have this absolute craziness happening on your show because people are watching and it's going to spread. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're talking to your producer going, who booked this idiot? Who's responsible for putting this person on my program today? Because it's not helping anybody. All it's doing is just getting people riled up.
It was great TV though. And that's
so I have another candidate, by the way. I don't think we just want to award it to her without considering Mr. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, not just because he's an ignoramus, as he showed originally. Remember where he said, I can't believe there's people who are asymptomatic that could actually get you, even though it's been common fact for 3 months. But keep in mind, look what he does. He's kissing Trump's ass his whole life, right? That's what he owes everything to Trump, right? So he does what he does. And then what happens, like what happens to all the lackeys that work for Trump, they don't understand the criminal mind, right? So when Trump decides, oh shit, I can't go along with this, he throws him right under the Greyhound bus that drives right over his ass. I mean, so he's got to get some consideration, not just because he's stupid in general, but because he's stupid enough to not know he's dealing with a career criminal. That's why he should get consideration.
I think that's not a bad one. He was definitely on my list.
I suspect that Trump called him up privately and said, look, I've got to do this. I got to go against you now, but hey, go for it.
I doubt he called him. Come on. You think that there was that actual courtesy paid to this guy?
Alan, seriously, he wouldn't call his own mother.
What was I thinking?
Because I don't think he even realized what he was doing.
To tell Melania anything.
Now, I mean, there's also, you guys did hear what Stephen Moore said the other day. Now, if you remember Stephen Moore, he's on the Economic Task Force. And of course, he's a former economist from the Heritage Foundation, and he had that failed nomination for the Federal Reserve a year ago. He talked about reopening the economy and just said, well, why don't we just put everybody in spacesuits? Seriously, that's what he said. And I'm thinking to myself, we can't even get masks to nurses and doctors and hospitals right now. We have no testing availability. That's what we really need to reopen this economy. And this guy actually thinks that this administration is capable of getting everybody that needs to work a freaking spacesuit?
A hazmat suit, yeah.
If we had
I mean, come on, though.
I want mine to be iridescent.
You didn't, Craig, you didn't know. He had a direct line to George Jetson. That's where they were going to get the spacesuits from.
Spacely Sprockets will be sourcing these spacesuits.
Right. All right. Are we giving our schmuck of the week now?
Well, we're putting out nominees. Maybe we should have people who are watching vote on this for us and give us their votes in the comments.
Or take suggestions.
And I'll put something out there, a little bit later on to see who the winner was. But yeah, go ahead, everybody. If you are watching this right now and you've got suggestions on who should be the schmuck of the week, feel free to put them in there. We're just throwing out some nominees. But remember this. It cannot be Donald Trump.
Not allowed.
It's not Donald Trump because the trophy is named after Donald Trump. It is the Donald J. Trump, J stands for genius, Schmuck of the Week award.
Okay, I have two. And I normally try to really narrow mine down. But this week I have two. And the first one, I'm going to be as brief as I can. I'm turning my back on my fellow Sisterhood of the Scarf member, Deborah Birx, because I think after seeing her face last night while he was talking about, the disinfectant and the light and all that stuff, I realized, there is something to be said for these people who have joined this administration or worked with this administration with the argument that if not us, who we will, somebody needs to hold this guy in check. It's better that we do it, who are skeptics, than some total lackey. But at another point, you also have to know when to bail, right? And I think she has long passed the moment to bail. I mean, I'm sure she wanted to stand up and go, "What are you doing? What are you talking about?" But she didn't do it. So she's up there. The other one, and I don't know if this reads on, is this reading backwards?
No, it's good.
It's not. Okay. I want you to look at this Ben Garrison cartoon. Now he is a very conservative libertarian cartoonist who mainly appears in right-wing publications.
Okay.
The guy at the top is Bill Gates. Okay.
Oh yes.
This is the plandemic. The plandemic. You are here, and it starts with fear, information control and censorship, shutdown and social distancing. Blame President Trump. You are here. Martial law and checkpoints, and then step 666. Mandatory vaccine rollout.
Oh yes,
okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if you're Bill Gates is like the new boogeyman on the right now. And
He's the new George Soros.
He is. He's the new George Soros.
What he is.
And
are we sure they're not the same person?
Fauci isn't been demonized by the right.
Well, my point is, I don't know where this came from. I haven't followed this back far enough to know why they fixated on Bill Gates, but this is dangerous. I mean, if I were Bill Gates, I would be tripling my security. I would be cutting my public appearances down to zero. And I'd be in fear for my life. These people think that he's the Antichrist. And you know what you're supposed to do to that guy. So,
well, I think he can afford to have security guards outside his place.
He can definitely afford. But I mean, for a guy, particularly a man who has pledged to spend his billions and has in large part carried out on this, improving public health around the world, right, to be held up as this sort of boogeyman is.
And sounding the alarm for years now. In 2017, he gave a speech and said, imagine if we had a weapon and it wasn't a bomb and it was able to kill thousands, if not millions, and it was able to cause chaos around the world and shut down economies.
Right.
And he was talking about a pandemic. This was 2017.
Well, see, and he laid it all out in this cartoon, as you can see.
And I have a friend at the Washington Post, Ellen Cypress, in 2009, wrote about the bird flu and wrote exactly about the exact scenario that's happening. He had it with the bird flu, and he was off. And I was going, thank goodness, because it was a scary, frightening book, but it's come to fruition.
Yep. So there you go.
And it's like global warming. They say, Trump's just totally, because he doesn't see it. You know?
It's a hoax. Anyway, all right. So those are my two nominees.
Dr. Birx, let me throw this in, because we were just discussing this earlier this morning, my wife and I. I've had about enough of people who say, whether it was Jim Mattis or Gary Cohn or whoever, who say, hey, if I don't stay there, it'll be worse.
Right.
There's no way. What she should have done, Eugene Robinson had a great column in the Post, Craig, you read the Post, the other day, about he's waiting to see somebody just get up and he put a bunch of, you can't say fucking shit in the Washington Post, but basically what you just said, Nance, to get up and say right on national television, live, where everybody's covering it, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life, and I quit.
Well, Fauci came close the other day when Trump says, we don't even know if this is going to come back or not. There's nothing for sure. Fauci gets up to the podium and says, I am convinced it is coming back in the fall. Basically, like, do not listen to this guy, and I can't bullshit you, and I'm tired of his bullshit. I mean, it was basically a total contradiction to what Trump had just said.
Was it Wednesday? Was it Wednesday where, and I can't remember who the public official was that was quoted, I believe in the Times, suggesting that with the flu season combined with the coronavirus, it could come back really badly in the fall. And the president said that was fake news. He was misquoted. And the guy's like, I was not misquoted in the Washington Post.
That's what I said.
Right in front of it. And it wasn't Fauci. It was another guy from
the
CDC.
It was
Redfield. Redfield.
And the president said he was misquoted. And they asked him, he said, did we misquote you? He goes, no, I was not misquoted in the paper. Right in front of the president. And
then
I thought
he's
to myself,
like, well,
this guy's going to be out of a job in a matter of moments.
He's like saying, well, I'm not saying it's going to be worse. It's just going to be more complicated. And so, Colbert was kind of joking, saying, 9 is not really necessarily bigger than 7. It's just more than 7.
But it's getting to the point of ridiculousness. And I saw a post on Twitter today from somebody who's in the press corps that just said, the first reporter who gets up in the middle of one of these and just screams out loud, that's the craziest crap I've ever heard in my life, should win a Pulitzer on the spot.
Right. So let me ask you this, Greg, because I think it might have been Robinson again wrote that. Let me ask you this. Why is everybody observing the niceties when the guy behaves the way he behaves? If he can tell them you're fake news, sit down, shut the fuck up, basically, why is it? I mean, you guys are in this business. Why are they not? Why isn't someone standing up and talking to him like you would be talking to a guy?
This is a very good question, and I think it's something that every editor and every high-ranking executive in news organization has to be asking themselves right now. Because I think at some point it's pointless to just. I mean, what are you going to do? Come back and say, no, you nanny boo boo, you're an idiot too.
Same time, though,
I think
the stories do the talk. The stories do the talking, though. I mean, take a look at the coverage today. The fact that we had that headline that we had today. The fact that we have columnists who are calling this guy out constantly. Those of us that have already crossed over into the world of opinion, we can say whatever's on our mind. I've not spared this guy at all.
No, but I want to hear what Lengel's going to say. Why don't they do it there?
I think for one, I think they're afraid of losing their seat in the room. I think they're afraid of being barred. But I think what needs to happen is they need to meet before the press conference or whatever it is. They need to talk to each other. And they need to say, when he knocks them down and refuses to answer, the next reporter says, Mr. President, and they don't have to be assholes to him, but they say, Mr. President, ask the same question. If he says, I'm not answering, the next person does the same thing. They need to stand in solidarity, because there's always suck-ups who are going to be like, he's like, okay, you are going to ask me a nice question. They're not there. They don't have to be rude. They don't have to grandstand, but they do need to be persistent, and they do need to insist on answers that the American people, reporting is all about, we go to the courthouse, we sit in the courtroom, we're there. That's our job, to convey what's going on, because everyone doesn't have time to go to the courthouse. We don't have access to that press room, but those people do. They're our representatives, and they need to do a better job of standing up and not just rolling over. It's bothersome. He denigrates some, and they look like they're little kids being scolded. I mean,
right, that's
it
my
used to
point.
be like Sam Donaldson and Dan Rather.
Mr. President.
They stood up to Nixon. And
Chris
Reagan
Wallace stands up better than anybody. When he does these interviews, I saw him a couple times with that crazy.
Yeah.
He stops the guy in mid-sentence and says, wait a minute, no. That's what I'm talking about. These are a lot of these people. You work for ABC or CBS. They're experienced, long-time reporters. They've got enough standing. It's like a judge bullying lawyers. A lot of lawyers let the judge get away with it. I don't believe in that. And a lot of people who are my age who've been doing it a long time, we don't believe in it either.
Right.
And I just don't understand why someone doesn't just say, look, what you just said was a lie. Here's what you said last week. It was a lie, what you just said. And then boom, and then proceed from there. More like cross-examination.
Right. I agree.
Well, it's definitely needed, but
the press needs to do a better job. I mean, they need to do a better job, and they need to be careful not to be grandstanding and try not to be rude, but they need to be persistent, and they need to keep standing up. And when they shut off their mic, the next person should be asking that same question.
Oh, and like I said, though, I still think, though, they let the reporting do the talking, because, there's a reason he bitches about fake news all the time, because none of these stories are flattering in any way, shape, or form. And all they're doing, they're just playing their role. They're reporting the things that he says and does, and showing people that there's immense amounts of hypocrisy and stupidity behind the vast majority of it. And that in itself, I think, is a powerful way to stand up to this guy. Keep reporting the dumb crap he says and does every single day and shove it in his face. I mean, that's basically what's happening. And I think that's the best way for the press to fight back, is to keep doing their jobs.
And I think it's important when Dr. Fauci says it's coming back in the fall. I think there needs to be a plan in place. We all need,
The only plan for the fall is reelect Donald Trump. So you know what that means.
Well, that's, and here's the funny thing. At the beginning of these rallies, and we've got to wrap this up in a couple of minutes here, but in the beginning, when these rallies started, a lot of people looked at this as a way, or press briefings, they were a way to replace the rallies that he could no longer have.
Mhm.
But what's happening is these are starting to backfire on him. And if you look at some of the polling data, especially among seniors who supported President Trump the last time around, they're not liking the idea that a number of Trump sycophants are suggesting that they die so the economy is going to be okay. Old people vote, man. What kind of a moron tries to take off old people? He might as well just announce a cut to Medicare right now.
Bye-bye, boomer.
Just do it, because, that's exactly it. Just your core constituency is starting to think that maybe they're being taken for granted. Just a thought. But anyway, we have a couple of suggestions online for Schmuck of the Week. One person voted for Nolan Finley on there.
In
for
the
some of the
end,
columns he's been writing. And go ahead, Alan.
I was going to say, in the end, maybe his plan to lower unemployment is just to let people die.
Well, it certainly is going to help with the Medicare shortfall, right? And Social Security.
Yeah, right. Look at all the people are dying in the nursing home. Think of how much money we're saving.
Well, yeah. In the meantime, though, we shall see. So what's everybody got planned for this weekend?
Let's see. Is it a weekend? What's the difference for the week?
Is it Doers or Maker's Mark? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm running out of Camus. That's all I can tell you. We're running out of Camus.
So I've got some.
We had plenty, but
I've got some 12-year-old cask-aged Clorox waiting for me. So we'll see what that's about. Besides that, though, just more of the same, I suppose. Binge watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I've been enjoying that show.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
People watch Fauda? Does anyone watch Fauda?
I have not.
I was going to.
Amazing.
Do Fauda again one of these days, but
Fishman,
my husband isn't the fan that I am. So.
you guys will be happy to know
Do you have Netflix, Fishman?
that consistency is a virtue, right? And I haven't seen a movie since Purple Rain. I haven't seen a TV show since the last edition of MASH. I want you to know This is week 6. I have not once, turned on a television set. Anything I've seen news related, I get on the computer, on the post, it'll give you a link to, an interview like with the crazy lady in Vegas, but not
technically that is a screen.
Not turned on the TV.
You're a sports guy though, right? Steve?
Yeah, but in all honesty, I think we talked about this before. I'm kind of glad. I want to see people come up with something else to do. The influence of sports, we've talked about this before, has become so overwhelming in American life. Between the gambling on it and whatever that games that the kids play, they join up with fantasy teams and whatever.
Right,
you don't even have to have been an athlete. Everybody thinks they're a sports person now.
Well, you also work out a lot too. How have you been coping that way?
Well, we have a basement where if you can't see back here, but there's weights and stuff back here, and we go every day. My wife and I go with a good friend of ours, and we put in an hour's worth of it. We go 2 or 3 miles, and so that's it.
This is my home gym. It's a prison setup. I got a yoga mat, I got a resistance band, and a ball, and that's about it.
I got my yoga mat. I walk a couple miles a day. I walk through Wayne State campus almost every day.
The funny thing is, you notice this is something that's very interesting to me. In general, city people speak all the time. You see a guy you don't know, hey, how you doing, in the city? But out, we're in Southfield, which is kind of like the city, but you go a little further and basically people never speak. They look the other way. Everybody is saying hi. People drive by, hi. They're all walking their dogs, hi, how are you? And I'm looking. these people have lived 50 years and never spoken to anybody. And now because of this pandemic, all of a sudden they live like we lived on 7 Mile.
All right. Well, we got to wrap it up, everybody, because we've been on a little bit more. We have as much time as we really want, but I try to keep this to a tolerable level for people. But I want to thank my guest this week, Steve Fishman. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate it, sir. And stay healthy, stay well, and thank you.
Okay, I'm very, very busy, so I don't know if I'll have, I have a lot of things to do. So.
Well,
when was the last time you were in the Ford building, Steve?
Yeah.
When was the last time you were in? I say, when was the last time you were in the Ford building?
I go once a week to pick up the mail. I'm going to go tomorrow because nobody will be around.
There you go.
But I mean, I'm there for 15 minutes, literally.
I think I've been to the office once since this all started, just to pick up some equipment that I needed, and that was about it.
Yeah, it really doesn't make any sense.
And are they dropping the mail off at your office?
The mail comes to the office. Yeah, I guess.
Okay,
I mean, I go there.
We can talk about this stuff offline, everybody.
All right, I'm sorry.
Alan Langle, thank you for being here. Always appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very
Steve
much.
Fishman, thank you. And Nancy Derringer, enjoy your workout thing that you've got going on next.
Thank you.
That should be fun too. Thanks to Michael Lucido for engineering this broadcast.
Michael Lucido.
He is there. He's with us. You just can't see him on there. But we will have this available as a podcast a little bit later on if you couldn't watch it live, and it'll be on deadlinedetroit.com. Probably tomorrow we'll put it up, so it'll be available for you in video form there. And thanks to everyone for watching today. Lots of good comments coming in on the page. The numbers are going in the right direction for this stuff, and we really, really do appreciate it. In the meantime, go to deadlinedetroit.com. We've got lots of important stories. And I just want to put this out there. There's some really, really cool stuff that we're doing over there, talking about some of just the regular people who have fallen victim to coronavirus, telling some of their stories as best we can, because every one of these numbers has a face behind it, and it's a person and somebody that many of us may have known or not known. I lost a good friend just yesterday, and it's out there. It's not just numbers, people. These are really, really important things that are going on out there. Stay safe. Stay home. All that good stuff.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay home safely.
Yes, stay home safely. All right.
The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.